Hello folks, this is Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing. The title of this video is a little bit of a tease. I'm actually going to put the title as The Best Wax. Now, as a professional detailer, answering this question, people will ask me from time to time, what is the best wax, Scott, that's on the market? That becomes a very slippery slope and very difficult to answer because we actually have to look at wax, what it actually means and what it actually does for the car. The idea of the best of anything is awfully subjective. I can tell you what I think is the best, you can tell me what you think is the best. It really all comes down to this. When we're looking at car waxes, what's going to determine what is the best wax for you is going to be what your car actually needs, or what your car is telling you it needs. And this is important to understand. Most of us who are going to the store, let's say it's a Saturday afternoon, you've washed your car, you're going to apply some type of wax to it. You might run to Walmart, Target, or a big box store or auto parts store and buy a wax. Well, for 95% of you that are going to those stores to buy that so-called wax, what you're actually buying is what we call a cleaner wax. There are two types of waxes on the market. There is a cleaner wax, and then there is a finish wax. I'm going to talk about both of them in this video and try to shed some light on it to make it a little bit easier to help you determine what is the best wax for you and your car. Now, the reason why these waxes that are sold to the masses are what we find that are on the shelves of stores, the reason why they're called cleaner waxes is because they actually clean the paint in the process of putting the wax on the car. And the reason why these manufacturers who sell waxes to the buying public, the reason why they want you to buy a cleaner wax is they probably already assume to some degree that your car probably has been neglected to some extent. Yes, they probably realize you wash it from time to time, but you're probably not waxing it or waxing it or putting a paint sealant on it as often as you should. They also know that you're probably not removing all the bonded contaminants that are on the paint that won't come off simply by washing your car. And if you've ever watched my video about the clay bar and how to remove bonded contaminants from the paint, it was a little lengthy and there's a lot of technical information in there. But the clay bar actually is one of the ways in which to remove all these bonded contaminants from the paint after you wash it, and that truly cleans your vehicle. But what the manufacturers are doing on a retail level, they're selling you a cleaner wax, and to some degree these cleaners or these abrasives within the wax can actually clean the paint for you during the process of applying the wax. Now, some of you, if you just heard that, I actually said the waxes that most of us are buying on a retail level are abrasive. And usually when people hear that, they're like, I thought waxes aren't abrasive. I thought after I clean my car, I put wax on. It's not abrasive. It's a form of protection, and it gives me shining gloss. That's not true. Unfortunately, that's not even true. The only way a car can be truly shiny and reflective is if it's completely true, completely smooth, and has no imperfections in the paint whatsoever. We have to understand how our human eyes work. We live on a round planet. We have little round eyeballs. We see things three-dimensionally, and the sun's rays will shine down on this car, and the rays will bounce off that panel and want to come back to my eye in a straight pattern. The straighter that reflective light comes back to me, back to my human eye, without any type of interruption from that reflection, the more my eye sees something or distinguishes something as shiny, as glossy. But for most of us driving daily drivers, because we're not maintaining them as often as we should, we probably have some layer of oxidation. It's dull, it's faded, it might even have some light scratches on it. And that's why on a retail level, the manufacturers are selling you a cleaner wax. And I'm going to show you something to kind of drive this point home, because even as a child, I remember helping my father wax the car, and I remember him telling me how to wax a car. A memory I won't forget. But I remember it probably, when I waxed this car, keep a good eye on how I do it, because I think you're going to recognize it's exactly how you're probably waxing your car as well. But simply, I'd put a little bit of wax on this applicator pad, and I'm going to massage it into the paint. Now, if you noticed, I used a circular motion. I oscillated my hand when I was applying the wax to the paint. And most of you are probably doing that. On a retail level, for those of you buying cleaner waxes, which is about 95% of you, because if you're buying it at a big chain store, the waxes manufacturers are selling to the public are a cleaner wax. You're going to have to, because I often thought it was funny, did somebody just come up with this idea of putting wax on in a circular oscillating motion? We all just repeated that habit as if that was the best way to apply a wax? Well, basically, that's exactly how you need to apply a cleaner wax. You have got to engage the abrasives within this wax to be able to clean that paint before the wax can actually start protecting the car. And the reason why these manufacturers do that, the reason why they're selling the buying public cleaner waxes that have abrasives in it, now they could be an actual abrasive, or they can do it by a chemical that can actually clean the paint. The reason why they do this, and they're selling it to the buying public, is because they know the only way to truly get shine and gloss from this paint is to make sure that you can remove some of those imperfections from the paint. The cleaner the paint, the more true the paint is, the smoother the paint, the less imperfections in the paint, the more reflective it's going to look to you. See, now, carnuba-based waxes, this is an important point to remember during this video. When you're using a carnuba-based wax, we have to look at what carnuba actually is. Carnuba comes off a leaf from a tree in South America, and it's an organic-based wax. It's a natural wax, and that's why it's called carnuba. Carnuba, when we apply it to the car, doesn't last all that long, and especially here in Dallas when we have some really, really hot temperatures. And the reason I bring this point up is because if you're applying a carnuba-based wax to your car, the minute the surface of the paint or the surface of the panel reaches 140 degrees or higher, the carnuba wax that you apply to the car has already begun to break down. Now, most people look at me and go, "You're kidding me." Well, I guess, global warming is not that bad yet. I haven't seen 140 degrees in Dallas. Well, that's not true. I'm talking about the surface temperature of the paint. If it's 90 degrees outside in June or July in Dallas and the sun is beating down on this car, I promise you, you will not be able to keep your hand on the surface of this car for more than 3 seconds. You'll want to pull it away because it will actually burn your hand. That's telling you that the surface of the paint or the surface of the vehicle has already reached 140 degrees or higher, and that carnuba wax you just put on the car has begun to melt down, and it's not protecting the vehicle anymore. And my point is the retail level waxes that they're selling you, they have to be cleaner waxes because they actually want you to clean your paint. They know that's where the shine and gloss is going to come from, is if you actually clean the paint, remove some of those contaminants, and be able to fill or self-level the clear coat, if you will, so that it's more reflective. The light will bounce back to your eye in a more of a straight pattern, giving you the effect of something being shiny and glossy. I want to bring this point up because this is really important. As a professional detailer, I offer waxes, I offer paint sealants in my packages. But here's the deal. If a customer was to call me ahead of time and say, "Scott, I like this package that you have. I want you to perform it on my vehicle, but I'm interested. What type of wax are you going to use? What type of wax do you like as a professional? What's the best wax out there?" I'm actually not going to be able to answer that question for that customer, certainly not over the phone. The reason for that is because I haven't seen their vehicle. I need to see the vehicle. I need to see in what condition the vehicle is in. Even after I detail it, even after I wash it completely, even when I use a clay bar on the surface of the paint and remove all those bonded contaminants, then I can truly see the condition of the paint. Is it dull? Is it faded? How much scratching does it have on it? Is there any level of oxidation on the clear coat? If that's the case, I am most likely going to be using a cleaner wax or a cleaner sealant, however you want to look at it, because I want to maximize my customer's dollar and use a wax or use a paint sealant, if you will, that has the ability to clean the surface of the paint and remove some of that oxidation or that dull look on the paint, so it maximizes my customer's dollar. So it's impossible for me to tell somebody this is the best wax for you, because let's say the wax that I buy, which costs me $200, and I'm applying it to my vehicle, works great for my vehicle because my vehicle is clean. It has no bonded contaminants on it. It is relatively flawless when it comes to scratches on the surface, so it's already reflective. If I recommended the wax I'm using on my car to somebody who doesn't maintain their car as well as I do, they're going to use that wax, and they're going to call me up the next day and go, I don't know who you are. You shouldn't even call yourself a professional. That wax you recommended didn't work for me. And that would be true because it wasn't appropriate for him or her in their vehicle based on their vehicle's needs. And I want to bring up this point because here in Dallas, not just in Dallas, but basically all over the place when it comes to auto detailers and advertising themselves to the buying public. A lot of detailers will they're either really ignorant or they're actually playing a game of smoke and mirrors. They're trying to trigger you or pull on your little strings, because most of us know and appreciate that a wax or a paint sealant can protect the vehicle, and to some degree it gives us some shining gloss. So most of us are thinking to ourselves, well, if I get the best wax or the best paint sealant, I'll get more protection. Well, if it's carnuba based, if that wax is actually carnuba in nature or natural in nature, unfortunately, if it's a $300 jar of wax or a $50 jar of wax, if they both have carnuba in them, they both will begin to fail at 140 degrees. So you have to start asking yourself, where am I really spending my money? Now, for me, buying a $300 carnuba-based wax doesn't mean that it's not important to me, because it actually is. Some waxes are much more user-friendly. Some waxes you don't have to wait for them to dry up and haze. You can simply apply it to the paint and almost wipe it off instantly. The user experience becomes very, very critical when we're talking about how much money we're spending on waxes. Most of us may wax our car and it can take 15-20 minutes for it to haze, or maybe even a half hour, and then we have to remove it. I'm willing to spend more money on a wax that I don't have to wait for it to haze, and I can remove it almost immediately after applying it, because it makes me more profitable. It makes my life easier, and maybe for some car enthusiasts it does for you as well. You don't want to spend an hour or two waxing your vehicle, so maybe those high-end waxes would make more sense. But the fact that they're carnuba based, and some professional detailers will tell their customers, well, one of my packages costs $200 because we use a carnuba based wax that only has 30% carnuba in it. But then we have a wax that has 50% carnuba in it, and that's why it costs $200 more, and it will also protect your paint longer. Folks, I'm sorry, this just isn't true. That's a game of smoke and mirrors. If it's carnuba based, once it reaches the temperature of the surface of the panel reaches 140 degrees, all carnuba, all organic waxes will begin to break down, just case closed. It doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money. That's why on a professional level, especially here in Dallas, I will always typically tip or guide my customer to a paint sealant. A paint sealant will last a lot longer and can survive under extreme temperatures, and that's why in Dallas I would use a paint sealant. So again, depending on the condition of your car and how well maintained it is going to determine what type of wax is going to be best for you. And the waxes you're buying in the store, keep in mind, 95% of them are cleaner waxes. They have abrasives in them. They want to remove those imperfections or try to fill some of those imperfections so that you get some level of shine, gloss, pop, however you want to look at it. That's basically how it works. But again, I just wanted to bring in that point. Why do we oscillate our hand and kind of massage the wax into the paint. And that's because most of us are using cleaner waxes, and we actually want to engage it into the paint so we can clean the wax. If you just simply wiped it over the surface real gently, you would not be getting the full effect or the desired effect that the manufacturer wanted you to get. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, if I have a car that's being well maintained and really doesn't have any issues with oxidation, the paint is relatively flawless, then I'm not going to use a cleaner wax or a cleaner sealant on that vehicle. I don't need to use something abrasive on that car. I can use what we call a finish wax or a finish sealant. Those types of waxes and sealants are pretty much reserved for cars that are in relatively good shape. But for most of you watching this video, if you're just using your car on a daily basis, going back and forth to work, picking the kids up from school, maybe you're driving through the car wash once a month to keep it clean, and if you wanted to wax it by hand and you were going to the store, you're buying a cleaner wax. It has abrasives in it. So I just kind of wanted to make that point. So my point here is that if you ask me what is the best wax, I'm going to have to ask you a couple of questions back. What are you driving? How well do you maintain it? When was the last time you used a clay bar on it? Have you ever had it compounded and polished? If you say no to me, I'm going to direct you towards a cleaner wax. And I think it's an important point to know and understand, especially for the buying public, because again, there's a lot of detailers out there who will try to manipulate, or perhaps, if I can be a little kind here, maybe some of these detailers just have false information. Maybe they're just regurgitating false information and they're making it truth for themselves, and they're not actually trying to manipulate you. They actually believe that some waxes can last a long time, but that's just not true. And as a professional detailer, I could not walk around with one particular wax or paint sealant and think it would work for every one of my customers' cars. That would be a complete injustice to every one of my customers, because the car has to tell me what wax is best for it. I hope this has helped you out to understand the different types of waxes that are on the market. Cleaner waxes are great for cars that aren't being maintained all that well. You want to remove some of those contaminants from the car, or you want to slightly abrade the dull look to your car and polish it in the process of waxing it, then the cleaner waxes you're buying on a retail level would be appropriate for that. If you have a car that's pretty much dialed in, it doesn't have a lot of imperfections in it, you are clay barring it when bonded contaminants fall on the paint, then probably a cleaner wax wouldn't be for you, or a cleaner sealant wouldn't be for you. You would want to up your game and go to a more finished wax or a finished sealant, and that would be appropriate for you and would be best for you. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching this video. Hope that's helped you out a little bit. Until next time, be safe.